Hey guys, we are back for My Deck Tech, which is Abzan Reanimator?
Tell me more.
I will. So let's go ahead and jump into this deck. So I played a very similar deck against Bradley J. Nelson in a video, and I wanted to run it back because I really enjoyed the deck a lot, and I wanted to test out a new card in the deck, which is See the Unwritten. So
ooh, this card's spicy.
It is pretty spicy. So you can look at the top 8 cards of your deck and put a creature into play. If you control a 4 or greater power creature, you can put 2 into play. So one of the things that we can do is play an early Siege Rhinoceros. I like to call it Siege Rhinoceros.
Oh, do you?
Full name, yeah.
Okay.
Can't call him just the Rhino.
Esquire?
Yeah. maybe like medical doctor or something.
Yeah, Dr. Siege Rhinoceros.
Yeah. Or a super early Necropolis Fiend, and you can cast both of these on like turn 3 to 4 range because of the delve mechanic and how powerful it is.
Oh yeah, I mean this deck just is screaming like get cards into the graveyard, right? Like Satyr Wayfinder, Commune with the Gods, even
Weaver.
4 copies of Nyx Weaver. So yeah.
Yeah, so this deck dumps a lot in the yard to make the Necropolis Fiend super cheap, and Siege Rhino you can play early with your mana dorks. And then those make See the Unwritten better, and the goal is to hit Hornet Queens off of it because Hornet Queen is just the best card in this deck. And
I need a fan over here. I got three Hornet Queens staring at me.
Yeah.
She's my queen bee.
You probably need like one of those like beekeeper nets around you, so you don't get.
Is that what Bobblight is? I'll just like cover my face in Bobblight so she can't sting me.
Yeah. And and to go along with that, we're also dumping a lot of cards in our graveyard, so we have a couple of Whip of Ereboses to bring them back out. So,
oh god, I can only imagine how gross it is for the opponent when you Whip of Erebos back a Siege Rhino.
Oh
that's
yeah,
just, ugh.
Yeah, it's like all right, I'll gain 7, you take 7.
Yeah, that's pretty good, pretty good.
It's like a mini Sorin's Vengeance. But yeah, so. I'm not trying to reanimate, but because of Whip and dumping a lot of cards in my graveyard, I definitely can do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the creatures in this deck are really good to whip back, like Rhino and Hornet Queen, and Satyr Wayfinder. Or maybe not. I don't know.
No, dude, I've whipped Satyr Wayfinder more often than like any other card in the whole game.
Yeah.
So.
And another card is Murderous Cut to really take advantage of dumping these cards in our graveyard.
This actually gets my vote for best card in the set.
Same.
I think that just with so many like Satyr Wayfinder actually is like one of the best cards in the format, I think, just because of how he enables Dredge, and he helps you hit your land drop. So like you don't have to rely too much on like your mana guys when you have Satyr Wayfinder because you get to continually hit your land drops, and he puts up like a little bit of defense against any sort of Soldier of the Pantheon or whatever kind of aggressive decks. You know, and the fact that like Murderous Cut usually costs 1 mana so that you can play a big spell and cast Murderous Cut in the same turn just gives you these big blowout turns. Yeah, like one of the big things about this deck is like on a power level alone, like this deck maybe is not there. It has a lot of powerful things, but one of the huge advantages is how efficient it is. All the mana dorks, the communes, and the Murderous Cut, like the deck and Necropolis Fiend, like all your cards are just super efficient big threats. Yeah.
Siege Rhino as well. So that is one of the big things about the deck is like efficiency, and then once you've established like a big early board, you're going to try to win the game with like a Whip or a Hornet Queen or a Necropolis Fiend or something like that.
Yep.
And you can use Nyx Weaver to like return your whips if you do mill over them.
Yep. The one thing I do want to point out about this deck is that your big threats, your top end, is not vulnerable to Stoke the Flames. Your Siege Rhino, your Necropolis Fiend, and even your Hornet Queen, you know, they kind of dodge it. Like Hornet Queen obviously will die to Stoke the Flames, but you still get 4 Bs off of it, so that's pretty awesome. But Siege Rhino and Necropolis Fiend both having 5 toughness is gigantic when, you know, I think that, most red decks are going to be, like, really popular, and, like, Stoke the Flames is just going to be one of the best cards, so.
Yeah, I really like that. Like, Siege Rhino also just a huge beating against red decks, gaining some life, having 5 toughness.
And it doesn't even trade off with Ash-Colored Phoenix either, so that's actually pretty frightening. This guy's going to be, like, these 2 cards here are going to overload my my Hero's Downfalls in this matchup, I think, but overall they're just very powerful cards in this format, so.
Yeah, and then for the mana base, one of the things I've noticed about the deck is tap lands are like the enemy.
Yeah.
They really hurt the mana base a lot. You want all your lands to come into play untapped if possible. I still have 5 tap lands because I think you have to make some concessions. And I've decided to go with 4 Temples and 1 Sandstep Citadel because I don't need a lot of white. In fact, Siege Rhino is my only white card.
Yep.
And but beyond that, I wanted as many untapped lands and as many sources as possible. So we have 8 Pain lands. It's a little gross. But I think it's probably better than Mana Confluence, so...
Oh, I agree with that. Like, you have enough, like, colorless mana symbols in all these cards that you can tap these for colorless pretty often, and it's not going to deal that much damage to you. So, Mana Confluence, when you have, like, a deck built like this, like, your Murderous Cuts cost colorless, I mean, everything in this deck, every single card except for Elvish Mystic has, you know, a colorless mana symbol in the cost. So, your Painlands are sometimes going to deal you damage, but not nearly as much as, like, a mono, or, like, a base red splash white deck or whatever, so...
Yeah, exactly. But that's the main deck for Abzan Reanimator and...
Reanimator?
Yeah, Reanimator. Abzan See the Unwrittenator. Unwrittenator.
All right, yeah.
Sideboard, yeah. All right, we are back for this sweet old sideboard where I am able to morph into a mid-rangey Planeswalker deck.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's so weird, Brian. That's innovative.
It is.
For you, especially.
Yeah, I've never played Planeswalkers before, so it's a first time for everything. But yeah, against a lot of the decks, I will want to morph into this Planeswalker deck against probably some of the more slower mid-rangey decks that have a lot of disruption that are going to be killing my hand or preventing me from doing what I want to do. Things like that. That's where I want Sorin and Nissa.
Yeah, like Thoughtseize is really great at breaking up synergy, and it actually punishes people for relying too much on synergy. And your deck doesn't do that as bad as like a Sidisi deck, I don't think, because like, you know, your Siege Rhinos are just great creatures to cast. Like,
yeah.
Right? Like, you know, all your threats, like when you can cast them, they're just fantastic. You don't really need the other stuff. But yeah, I do like boarding into a deck after game one that's just all great cards and not really a bunch of synergy.
Yeah, like I can cut some of those like Nyx Weaver type cards and get these like, you know, gassy Planeswalkers out there.
Yeah.
A couple of Reclamation Sages, maybe even 3 is right, because I think there's going to be a lot of, like the red and black aggressive decks are probably going to have a lot of like Eidolon type cards or bestowed creatures. And I think Reclamation Sage is like a, I don't know, Shriek Maw type creature.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be great in this format. Like people, like, I don't even mind some copies main deck, because with Commune with God, sometimes you can just find it like early on and be able to take care of things like Corsair Crew Fix against decks that are relying on using it to hit mana drops. You can take care of things like Gnarled Scarhide, you know, Eidolon and Great Revel, Banishing Light. There's so many targets in this format thanks to the enchantment theme from Theros block, so I think Sage is actually going to be pretty sweet in general. I do see a lot in the sideboards. I would like to see a few in the main deck at some point, but maybe not yet.
And then 4 Ram and 3 Bill Blight. Those are just for the aggressive decks.
Billy Blight? Was
yeah.
it Robert Blight?
William.
William. Sorry.
William Blight.
I couldn't think of the...
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then a singular Empty the Pits. I don't want this in the main because I'm using my graveyard for Necropolis Fiend and Murderous Cut, and quad black is a bit of a beating.
Yeah, I mean, this feels way more of like a combo with Urborg.
Yeah.
As opposed, because like your deck, like you have a bunch of forests, plains, windswept heaths. You don't actually. I mean, a lot of your Painlands deal you damage. Like this card could be pretty hard to cast, but also could just like be uncastable at some points when you get yourself low enough on life. So.
Yeah, and I feel like there's going to be some decks in the format where either Necropolis Fiend or Murderous Cut's not where I want to be, and then I could bring in the empty the pits, and really get them with that.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds good.
Yep. So this is the deck. Hopefully. It'll showcase pretty well with the battles. I haven't played with See the Unwritten before, so...
Well, I haven't ever cast a Thoughtseize before in my entire life, so I'm curious to see how good that card is.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a sweet new Theros card that we'll see if it can make its way in a standard. Yeah.